All right, everyone, we're here with Richard Miles, CEO and founder of CLOSEM AI. It is a sales automation tool that helps you convert your leads more quickly with follow-ups and different omni-channel approaches. Richard, thank you so much for coming onto the show. I'm really excited to interview you. Jumping right on in, first question is, what were you doing before you started CLOSEM AI?
Well, it depends on how far back you want to go. Right
Yeah.
before I started Closem, I was living with my wife in Africa. We were living in East and Southern Africa for 12 years.
Oh, wow.
Um, so I had a very interesting set of career moves in Africa.
Really?
Um, yeah,
What brought you to Africa
well,
and
what
what
brought
were you
me to
doing there?
Africa? My wife is a public health physician,
Oh, amazing.
and uh, I was she was working in California. We were both working in California, and I had a consulting firm where basically I could work from anywhere. And she had the opportunity to take her work to Africa. I thought it'd be a great adventure. It was.
Yeah.
When I was in Tanzania, I ended up being the chief operating officer of a nonprofit that helps smallholder farmers in sub-Saharan Africa. So here's this high-tech guy learning a lot about
Yeah.
African farming.
Yeah.
Uh, I ended up becoming the executive director of the American Chamber of Commerce. Got to meet the Treasury Secretary, got to shake hands with Barack Obama. So that was
Wow.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Did consulting work. Then we moved to Botswana, and uh, didn't find there wasn't so much for me to do in Botswana.
Yeah.
And when I really started looking around, I want to build a SaaS company because who knows where we're going to be living, and I want something that I can do wherever we are in the world as long as I
Right.
have internet. So I started looking around for building a SaaS company and looking at things that were available in different technologies and things like that. And then we ended up moving back to the States, and so I we moved back here to California. Once again, I was kind of looking around. Well, what do I want to do? Still had the idea to build a SaaS company,
Yeah.
and so the genesis of Closem was that we bought a house, and we had 20 people coming over for Thanksgiving. This is
Hmm.
just pre-COVID, and 2 days before Thanksgiving, my oven broke.
Oh, wow.
So I called the
That's terrible. That's like
not,
the nightmare.
not good. So I called the uh, home warranty company, and they sent a technician out to fix my oven. Guy comes out, great guy, young guy starting out in business. I interviewed him because I wasn't working and it was 2 days before Thanksgiving. It's like, so
Yeah.
what are you doing? Well, I used to work for this other guy, but I just started going out on my own and I bought a truck and I bought all this equipment. And well, what do you want to be doing? Do you want to be doing this appliance repair? I mean, you can't make that much money off the
Yeah.
deductible I pay. And he's like, no, but this keeps you know, keeps the wheels moving. But what I
Yeah.
really want to do is I want to do this air conditioning duct cleaning. I bought this equipment that does it. It's really lucrative for me, and everybody needs it twice a year. And it's like, oh yeah, that's really cool. So I started giving him advice about, like, because this is what this is what I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. The consultant in you came out.
I started giving him advice. Well, you know what you ought to do is you ought to send me a notice, like when springtime rolls around, that I should get my ducts cleaned, and then once again, you should give me a special offer and blah 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 blah. And he's like, yeah, that's all great ideas. And he did a great job. It was very thorough, and he got the oven working, and he had to go get parts, and it was a long story. And I liked him, wished him well, and he left, and I never heard from him again.
And you're like, how is this going to repeat? Like, how's
Oh,
this business going to repeat?
it's like that was the light bulb moment where it's like,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
guy has my cell phone number, he has my email address, he
Yeah.
has my physical address, and all he had to do was on his way out send me a text message saying, "Hey, if you like the job I did, could you give me a shout out on my Facebook page or my Yelp page or my
Right.
Google My Business or my website or whatever? Hey, by the way, I could, my business relies on referrals. Is there
Hmm.
anybody you can refer me to?
Yeah.
Is it okay if I use you as a reference?"
Yeah.
And then, in the springtime, he should have sent me a note saying, "Hey, look, you should get your stuff cleaned," because I trusted the guy.
Hmm.
I,
Hmm.
especially if you'd said like, "Here's a $25 discount coupon or
Oh,
whatever."
for sure.
So that's
Yeah.
the genesis CLOSEM. Like, I could build a tool
Yeah.
that could do all of this follow-up and do it automatically.
Yeah.
And, the other little genesis is when I first started my consulting business. This is a million years ago, before the internet. And I remember my consulting firm was sales and marketing for high-tech companies. And so I met with a lot of engineers and software developers who didn't have a clue about how to sell their stuff. And I remember I met with this guy, and he had developed this great sales automation tool.
Mm-hmm.
And just to back up one step further, I mean, I started my career as a salesman.
Yeah.
So, the difference between a sales superstar and a guy who's just barely getting by is the quality of their follow-up.
Yeah.
When I was a salesman, someone said, call me later, I did.
Yeah.
Other people said, oh, don't call on those guys. They can't buy until October. It's like, well, I'll be here in October.
Yeah.
So anyway, I interviewed this guy, and he had developed this product that did this sales automation thing.
Yeah.
And it was built on a Macintosh computer, and it was like going to be $3,000.
Yeah. Whoa. At that time,
it's not going to fly. It's just not going to fly. So anyway, that was always in the back of my mind, is what a cool thing to do. And then I had this idea, and I called an old colleague of mine named Laura Betterly, who is, after I went off to Africa, but she stayed in the industry and became really well known for developing something called mobile local fusion, which is how small businesses can use mobile and local to pump their businesses up. So I gave Laura a call. I said, hey, I got this idea to do this thing. And she said, I think it's a great idea. Why don't we partner? And so off we did. And that's how CLOSEM started. So the other thing about CLOSEM is that we always had our technician in mind, right? And our technician's a great technician. If I hand him a pipe wrench, he can pick it up and look at it and go like, this is a good pipe wrench, or it's a bad pipe wrench. A pipe wrench I don't need, whatever. But if I say like, here's this software tool, it's like, oh, I don't know.
I have no idea.
So we wanted to make it just totally bone simple and completely push button automated. And then what we did was, we know that most of the people that out there in the world are good at what they do, but they're not necessarily good at writing sales copy or marketing copy.
Yeah.
And so what we did was we packed all these message templates into CLOSEM so that it was already ready to go. So there's like a dozen asking for referral messages, and there's a dozen give me a review messages, and there's dozen following up after a sales call where the guy says maybe messages. So all that stuff was built in. And what's really interesting is that 2 years later and a couple thousand users, a lot of our users are actually using, we mark some of the messages we mark as RTG, which means they're ready to go. They're really generic. You don't need to change them. And some of them require you to think about, we specialize in, you have to fill in the blanks. A lot of our users are still using the absolute RTG messages with no customization whatsoever. Yeah. And they're getting great results. So we knew we were onto something. So that answers kind of a couple questions at once. Which is what,
no, I love the background, because it shows one thing a lot of founders talk about is like there's always an idea that came way prior to then maybe some like ultimate light bulb or immaculate conception of an idea that when they're working on a product or something like that. But a lot of times it's a fairly rooted problem in their experience that maybe they don't know how to tackle at that point, or don't know how important it is until they have that interaction with a technician, right, that needed that, and you just saw like, man, if you could just turn this little dial up and get this level of exposure out to your customers consistently, then you're the top of mind. Because a lot of businesses, I think, struggle in being top of mind. And I started my career in sales as well, and a lot of times we were taught to put it down the line, put a reminder on there, but it's not necessarily efficient. And then we use all these sales automation tools, not to name a few, because maybe there'll be guests in the future, but that aren't necessarily as useful in bringing in like follow-ups and making them actionable. Like, so when you think about actionability, I'm curious on like, what your philosophy is on that. Obviously it's consistency, it's using information.
First first of all, I did a video called CRMs are bullshit, just to clear it up. Because as a consultant, I would go to a client and I would try to help them with their sales and marketing, and they would say like, "Oh, look, we just invested in this CRM," and I'd go, "Oh crap!" And then I interviewed their salespeople, and their salespeople hated using it, and it didn't seem to help them close any sales. It was just sort of like this massive reporting tool, and so they didn't put data into it, so it was all garbage, and everybody hated it, and that's the end of the story with CRMs. When we built this, technically we are a CRM. We're a contact manager. You can load all your into it, stuff like that. But what we did was we made it a functional follow-up tool. So there's things that people who are used to CRMs want, like, pipeline reports that show like how much money will I make if I close X number of people. And again, I think that's kind of crap. What we wanted to do was do something that would just automate the process of follow-up. And here's the thing. Every salesman in the world will hear more often than not, "Yeah, that's interesting, but not right now. Call me later." This is, and either "call me later" is they really are blowing me off and they're just saying "get out of here" and they want to be polite, or it's "call me later" because it's like, "Yeah, that's interesting, but not right now." Timing, or it's interesting and I don't want to be pressured by a salesman, or I just can't deal with this now, or it really is I'm pregnant and moving and whatever.
Life's crazy.
And so I have this whole series of messages that I built. So the first superpower of CLOSEM is the ability to send text messages as well as emails, because emails are great, but text messages get through 97% in 3 minutes. The second superpower of CLOSEM was we added postal mail, because everybody's stuck in this digital box. How do I get more? My open rate, my this, my that. It's like, no, what you really want to worry about is what's your engagement rate. And so you want to reach people where they are. So we added postal mail, because postal mail is outside the digital box and very affordable and very effective and very sticky. The average lifespan of an email is 17 seconds, and the average lifespan of a postal mail is 17 days. I call people up and they go like, "I got your postcard." People really like it. Their mailboxes like getting a personal postcard. So that was the second superpower. And the third superpower was to be able to combine these into ongoing campaigns where the messages are separated by time. So I have a campaign called, "Call Me in 6 months." And what happens is I push a button and it goes out with a text message that says, "Hey, thanks for talking to me. I understand you're busy. Respect your time, and I look forward to speaking with you again in the future." And that's followed up by an email that goes out 2 weeks later that says like, "Hey, I know you're still busy. I respect your time, but I was just thinking about you, and here's 5 things to consider when you're thinking about whatever it is I'm selling. And if you are free, here's my calendar, here's my phone number, give me a call, be ready to meet with you. But otherwise, if you're still busy, I totally respect that. And I look forward to meeting with you in 4 months' time or 3 months' time or 6 months' time, whatever the thing was." Because we actually have a contract. They said, "Call me later." I agreed. That's a contract. So I want to enforce that contract. So I'm going to keep sending those messages out. And a month later, another message that says like, "Hey, I know you might be busy. I respect your time, but just in case, here's a case study of someone who blah, blah, blah." Right? So here's what happens. That's going to go out for the next 6 months. So most salespeople call me later. They're just on to the next guy. If they're really good, maybe they make a Post-it note somewhere and say, "Call this guy in 6 months," and they put something, whatever, right? Even that diligent salesperson, if they pick up the phone and call in 6 months, they're starting from zero again. Who is this? What's this about? Call me again in 6 months, right? But in this case, what you can do is you push that button. I've got a campaign of messages that are going out from now for 6 months. The last one says, "Hey, I look forward to meeting with you as Tuesday or Thursday next week. Good choice. I'll be calling your office." And so now what's happened is over that 6 months period of time, I've branded myself. I've branded myself. I'm a respectful guy. I know, because I keep telling him I respect his time. Number 2, I'm not trying to sell him anything. I'm giving him interesting things to think about, right? So I'm branding myself as someone who has something to contribute, right? And I'm not a pressure salesperson. And third, I'm reminding him over and over and over again that we have an agreement, a contract to meet at a certain point in time. Now, if they really didn't want to meet with me, they'll just hit unsubscribe, and I don't care. that either they will call me back because that message that I just sent them sparked something in them, and it was the right time, and they're like, hey, but even if nothing else happens, when I do call them in 6 months, I pick up the phone and I say, hey, it's me, Richard, and they go like, yeah, no, I got your postcard, I got your email, I saw that thing that you did, right? And so I'm a known person, and I'm not coming from strangers. It's like, great, let's talk about whether we can meet your needs right now.
Yeah.
So that's what we can do with CLOSEM. It's an unbelievable tool, and it's designed to do just that: save you time, keep you branded. Now, we just added a fourth superpower to CLOSEM, which is appointments and reminders. So, guy says, call me next week. It's not really an appointment, but I don't want to blow it off. I don't want to forget. So I can set myself a reminder, call this guy, click one button. It's got all this data about what we just talked about in there. So it'll send me a reminder by SMS or by email or both to remind me to call this guy today. And if I want to, I can click another button and it'll drop it right into my calendar. So it's in my calendar to call this guy. Now, if it's a real appointment and it's like, hey, call me Thursday at 11 a.m., I do the exact same thing, but this time I click a button and I not only remind myself, but I remind the customer, right? So I click that button, drops it into calendar. He has a calendar invite. He gets an SMS reminder that we're going to meet, an email that says we're going to meet tomorrow, an SMS that says, please get ready, I'm going to call you in 15 minutes. And all the data's there, the Zoom link or the phone number or the address, where we're going to meet, all that data's there. So we added this reminders, which is really, really an incredible tool for salespeople. So that's all about CLOSEM, and that's why we think it's a really great tool.
No, I think it adds so much value, right? A lot of people, when I was in sales, and still, I mean, I think everything is sales, right? You've got to remain some kind of, you've got to brand yourself, you've got to be on the top of mind of your customers and your clients, even the people you work with around you. You have to like maintain a certain level of like you said, branding. But like in terms of philosophy around like cadence and stuff, because I hear people talking a lot about cadence when they discuss selling and follow-ups and things like that. What's your philosophy around it? Like, what's a good time? What's a good amount of time to follow up with people? What are some like kind of key tips that you think have been successful for you throughout the years and now using CLOSEM?
Well, it's always about them, not about you. That's my, bottom line, easy answer. And I've trained a lot of salespeople over my career, and usually what happens with salespeople is it's like, let me tell you about my thing. Let me tell you about this thing I have for you, and let me see if I can get you interested in my thing.
Right.
And what I do is be inquisitive and ask questions. So tell me a little bit about your business. What are the challenges that you have? How do you guys do stuff now? What do you do now? How's that working for you? Hey, what if I could show you a way to blah, blah, blah? Would that be of interest to you? No. Great. Thanks for your time, right? So, I mean, there's a great thing. Everybody quotes this these days, which is this scene from the Wolf on Wall Street movie where, guy says, sell me this pen. Right. I don't know if you've seen that. Sell me this pen. It's a gold pen and it writes really well. And then one guy, takes the pen and he says, you need to sign a contract, don't you? Right? Yeah.
I like that. I like that one. He's like, well, I don't have a pen. Well, I have this pen.
I always talk about like cell phones. People are like, they want to sell their cell phones, and it's like, look, it's got a big screen and it's got a thing on the back, a fingerprint and cameras, and it does all this stuff, and I can do blah 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 blah. No, the first thing you need to do is
make a phone call.
You need to make.
Yeah. What kind of? It seems like CLOSEM can literally be in so many businesses. Like, if you have a sales team, you could use this tool or product. Like, what kind of traction are you seeing now? Are you working with the technicians of the world right now? Are you working with startup companies? Are you working with enterprise companies?
Yeah, no, our niche is our solo entrepreneurs, small to medium businesses. Once you get into a team of a dozen people, 20 people, then you have a sales manager and an IT guy, and they want to do other stuff.
They want to do other stuff.
Time for somebody who just wants to get the job done, wants to increase sales, and needs to get back to doing servicing their clients. One of the things about most small businesses, whether you're a web designer or a plumber or whatever, coach, consultant, is you'll go from feast to famine.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're very hungry, you'll work really hard, you'll get 3 contracts. Now your time's 100% devoted to fulfilling those contracts. Money's coming in, you're feeling pretty good about yourself. All of a sudden you complete those contracts, you're starving again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you start hustling. So the idea is you should always be hustling,
Right.
right? You should always have something out there generating more business. When my first job in sales, I was like 22 years old. And my first year in sales, I was salesman of the year for a national company.
Congrats.
And I get interviewed at the national sales meeting and said, like, well, what do you attribute your success to? And I was like, well, I park my car. And they're like, what do you mean you park your car? I said, well, I watch my colleagues, and they like drive from the office to an appointment and back to the office.
Yeah. I go downtown, park my car, and I walk and bang on doors all day long. So I'm out hustling. Yeah.
Right. And then I have $1 million briefcase.
Yeah.
They're like, you have $1 million briefcase. What's that? I said, well, it's not. It's actually a cheap $30 briefcase, but inside is $1 million worth of proposals.
Yeah.
And, if I have a good week, I'll close one of those. And that's the good news. But now I have less than $1 million in my briefcase. So I need to always keep that $1 million in my briefcase.
Yeah.
So that as I'm closing sales, I still have a backlog of business that could come in.
Where did you develop that philosophy? Like that's pretty unique for a 22-year-old coming first job in sales, and it's very well articulated. I feel like a lot of people are like, I hustle, I'm active, I'm always building my pipeline. You had these like I don't know token like phrases that you had. Like where did that come
from? Fear and starvation. It's like I wanted to, I mean, look, you asked me about like entrepreneurs talking about the idea and the genesis of that stuff. In my career, I've stolen more good ideas from other people who've told, hey, I have this really good idea to do blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wow, that is a good idea. I'll do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Ideas are cheap, man. People come up with 30 ideas a day. The trick is whether you actually do them or not.
Right.
Whether you actually say like, you know what, I'm going to risk making this happen. I'm going to put myself out there, and I'm going to do this. And it could, and a lot of times what I see people doing these days is they have 3 side hustles going.
Right.
And they're not committed to any of them. They're just hoping that it's like a lottery ticket. Like one of these is just going to take off on its own somehow.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
You have to devote yourself to that side hustle.
Yeah.
Right. Now that doesn't mean you've got to quit your job today and go to starvation, but you got to really devote that time. And if you're going to develop a side hustle, you better know that like, oh, now I have 2 jobs.
Yeah.
I've got my regular job that I'm doing whatever it is I'm doing for money, and I've got this side hustle, and I can't treat it like an occasional thing.
Yeah.
I've got to put the time into it and make it happen. There's that old saying about like, you got to put 10,000 hours into something to become an expert at it.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's true and sometimes it isn't, but it's more true than not.
That's crazy. I was talking to someone about, like a lot of the economy right now is built out of people having like 3 different hustles. And it's like, and I'm talking because I have younger brothers on, these individuals in their lives that have all these, and they're doing all this activity. And I'm confused because you're right. There's this different level of dedication and fear that comes with actually committing yourself to something and trying it. It's like you can't be 1 foot in, 1 foot out the door because it's not going to be successful. You have to be. Success takes time, and a lot of that is just learning how to be good at something, and then now the results come with all the previous work that you've accomplished and everything that you've learned on that. So I guess what in those moments, and I love the doing aspect because I mean I preach to my younger siblings all the time is like, people can say things and all this talk and whatever, but you got to commit to it and you got to do it. What motivates you to do it?
Fear and starvation.
Where does that come from? Where does that come from? That's not a reasonable fear in the day and age now, for a working individual, right? But like, where did the fear and starvation come from? That's rooted in something else.
When you become an entrepreneur, actually this goes back to my salesperson days, right? I was a salesperson. I made money by being on commission. Still, to this day, really the best job I ever had.
Yeah.
because if I needed more money, I just worked harder and I made more money.
Yeah.
I didn't have to go ask the boss for a raise, and I didn't get the same amount of money every day, and I didn't work the same hours every day, and I didn't go to the same place every day, right? But the thing about being a commission-only salesperson is unless you're in front of someone who could buy what you're selling, you are unemployed.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd wake up that was the thing is I wake up every morning unemployed.
Yeah.
It's like I got
to go get a job.
I got to get somebody who's going to buy my stuff because otherwise I'm unemployed.
Right.
And being unemployed really sucks.
Yeah.
Actually, being on vacation is great, but being unemployed sucks.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You want to be doing something, and you want to be doing something productive, and you need to be earning money. Being unemployed sucks.
Yeah.
So, that's it. Just came from wanting to do a good job and and wanting to make some money. Yeah. For me, the big motivation early in my career was I wanted to be able to buy a house.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't want to live in an apartment. I wanted a piece of the rock. I wanted my own place, and in order to do that, I needed enough money that the bank would loan me money.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I love that. It sounds like you carry that philosophy now, right? The fear of starvation and hunger. I love that philosophy. But I guess from a bigger view with CLOSEM, what are the risks that you're facing? What are the risks that you have and the fear you have in your mind? Fear is a tough word. I don't like using the word fear, but I'll use it because you said it.
It's a good motivator.
It is a good motivator. So what keeps you up at night? What are you fearful of with CLOSEM that you face today? It's
getting enough traction. We're a self-funded startup. We chose not to go out and raise money. The reason we chose not to go out and raise money is I've done that. This is not either of our first rodeo.
Yeah.
And really what happens when you choose to raise money is the job of the CEO is called raising money.
Yeah.
And I didn't want my job to be about raising money. I wanted my job to be about growing this business and getting it off the ground. And that's where I get satisfaction. But neither of us were the third employee at Google and had, have tons of money. We're both scrappy entrepreneurs so we don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars to invest in, and our competitors do.
Right.
So many of our competitors are way more well funded than us.
Sure.
And so that keeps me up at night. I mean, we're an incredibly well kept secret, and that's a problem. Because so we're doing things that we can do to be scrappy and get the word out organically.
Right.
And that's how we're growing. We're about to launch a new product. We've developed a new product called LINKEM, which is a very cool product that is a companion to CLOSEM. And so we actually have morphed from just CLOSEM to CLOSEM apps, and we've got a couple other products in the pipeline that are come out that are all sort of interrelated, but where people asked us for things like, hey, can you get us leads as well? So we've got something in the pipeline to help generate leads, and we've got something, a couple other things that we'll announce when the time's right. But so we're busy cranking things out.
Yeah.
One thing I'll tell you though is that both Laura and my philosophy has always been that if we have happy customers, the business will succeed.
Yep.
And so no matter how big we've grown, we still our support is live chat.
Yeah.
There's none of this open a ticket, send an email.
Get lost in the shuffle. Yeah. Nah.
You got a problem with our product, during business hours, we're on chat, and you're going to get a human. It's not a robot. It's not AI. It's a real person that's going to ask you questions about what you're trying to accomplish and try to come up with ways to help you do it. So, customers love us, and we get rated, our 5-star rating is all about always the level of support that we provide.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I think what's echoed been, as I've interviewed more and more founders is staying in front of the customer in real time, because that feedback that you're gonna get is what you're gonna use to actually grow your vision long term, and even make the small improvements that can like scale your business or gain more traction. I think it's undervalued in, a lot of people like to collect this data and then maybe do an analysis on what should we focus on. No, I mean, there's customers telling you what they need right now, and that's the most important information. That's the easiest low-hanging fruit to access, and leads me into my next question. What's the long-term vision for CLOSEM? What are the customers saying that you should do, or what do you want to accomplish for your customers?
I just want to see my customer sales go up. That's the whole thing about CLOSEM, is it's all about helping other small businesses succeed.
Yeah.
That's it. That's going to make me very happy. I'd like to go to I'd like to see the number of customers increase with numbers to the left of a comma. Multiple digits to the left of a comma. We're already at the left of a comma, but now I want to get to a couple more digits left. To the left.
Love that. And there's so many small businesses out there. Oh, good.
There's a philosophy that says that if you're not number one in the market, you're insignificant.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that. I want to be the right tool for our customers,
right,
that is better than anything else they can find, but I don't have to be, I'm not going to try to compete with Salesforce. I'm not going to try to compete with although on the other hand, if Salesforce is listening, I'd be happy to
talk about it. Yeah. That's I love that philosophy. That's something me and my business partner share for the company we run. Is like there's a lot of opportunity out there. There's a lot of customers looking for a certain service or tool, and it's not a winner take all market. I think that's leaving a lot on the table in regards to like what other businesses or what your business can actually run. And if it's a winner take all market, then you're trying to create like this one customer type, and it's just not the case. The world is dynamic, right. Everything's dynamic in that way, and diverse.
One of the things I do want to give you a little shout out here, because one of the things that did keep me up at night was finding good development talent.
Yeah.
And no, seriously, I mean, this was really, really hard for us.
Yeah.
Because neither my partner or I are technical founders. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to build a technology company when you're not a technical founder, and you have to rely on other people to get your vision. Now, again, this isn't my first rodeo. Right. I've run engineering teams. I've built other products, and I'm kind of a pain in the ass when it comes to it, because I'm like, are you sure you can't do that?
Yeah.
It seems like, right. But finding good quality tech people, it's been a real challenge, and Otter Labs has been great. We were really, really happy with the quality of this that we got.
I appreciate that. No, I mean, we value the feedback you gave us in regards to our process, and like you said, it's such a, when you have a customer, it's such a dynamic relationship where you're getting the feedback. We receive great feedback from you on ways we can improve our process, and it's challenging, but that's why you're in business, is to solve those challenging problems and then satisfy the customer, get them what they want, and potentially get them more in the future, right? And work with them. I know we're running quick on time here, and I've loved everything we've chatted about. But bonus question, I always like to ask founders: are there any or what books or people have influenced you the most?
Right. Well, books. 2 books I'll recommend. One is Good to Great by Jim Collins. Absolutely great business book to read, because it really talks about what are the fundamentals of making a great company. And it's, first thing he had to do was define, well, what is a great company? So he came up with his own measurement, which was a company that outperformed its peer group by a factor of 10 over at least 10 years. And you go like, well, are there companies that have done that? So he found companies that had done that.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting, because some companies that you would think would make the list weren't on it. Some companies that you would go like, what? We're on it? And he analyzed like, what was the quality of leadership? What was the quality of the process? How did it all work? And it's really great. And one of the things about that is he talks about something called the Flywheel Effect, which is flywheel's this big wheel, and if you just put this much pressure on the flywheel and you just keep doing that consistently, the flywheel goes faster and faster and faster and faster. And that's our fundamental thing with CLOSEM, is we just keep tapping that flywheel. We're not looking to,
hit a big swing or anything like that. Yeah.
Another book I would recommend is called Made to Stick, which is by Chip and Dan Heath. And they come up with how to make a sticky idea.
Yeah.
And and this is so important, especially for software companies, because it's sort of like, well, what do you do? And it's like, well, we fundamentally alter the blah, blah, it's like, and these guys really have a nice formula for coming up with an idea that sticks, that's memorable.
I love that. So Good to Great and Make It Stick are now on my reading list, either audiobook or Amazon Kindle. But Richard,
too, which is really great. If you get the audiobook, you'll be laughing.
I love it. Do they narrate in it?
I read the book, and I actually went to a webinar or seminar.
Yeah.
Actually, I was at a presentation that they did live. That's where I met them.
That's sweet, man. That's sweet. Well, Richard, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate all of your knowledge and your interesting story from Africa to now back in the States, building technology. And I love the philosophy around small businesses and helping those customers thrive and increase their sales through actionable, tasks and activities that they can utilize in their day-to-day. So thank you so much for being on the show, and I appreciate having you, man.
You bet. Thanks a lot, man. Talk to you later.
Yep.
Bye.